Joining us now is Bloomberg Congressional reporter Erik Wasson. And Erik, I want to start with this dynamic that was really kind of characteristic of Lindsey Graham. At a time of great isolationism in the Republican Party, he was an avowed interventionalist, traveling around the world. As Christina just mentioned, most recently in Ukraine. His passion was that. And I wonder if you could talk a bit about the role that he played in the U.S. Senate over his 4 terms in the Senate.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say I'm shocked by this news. He was a very nice person in the hallway, very personable and friendly, and I'm very surprised and saddened by it. He was an interventionalist, much in the mold of Mitch McConnell and the late John McCain, a breed of Republican that seems to be phasing out in the America First era. He just announced a Russia sanctions bill that he's going to try to push in the Senate on Friday after a meeting with Vladimir Zelensky in Ukraine. Very much an interventionist, very much a war hawk. You know, he was very much in favor of the bombing of Iran, of trying to replace the regime there. Just a very assertive foreign policy voice that's going to leave that faction of the party without a very, very clear champion right now in the debates to come. Someone also a senior appropriator, someone who, fought to increase the military budget, as well as, leading one of the leaders on the massive Republican tax cuts that went through. So, this is going to lead an opening in the Senate. I'm hearing from a source that Joe Wilson, the representative, senior representative on the House side, is very much interested in running for this seat. It'll be a special primary and could be appointed by Governor McMaster in the coming days. It's hard to see who else from the delegation could really unite the group. Nancy Mace and Ralph Norman are 2 other Republicans that are prominent in the delegation. They ran against each other for governor. So it's very much a developing story. But this is someone, one of the biggest personalities, biggest characters in the Senate, and he's going to be missed by his colleagues, I think.
And Joe Wilson, for those who are not familiar with him, I remember I wrote a piece back in 2009. He was the gentleman who shouted out "You lie" during Obama's joint address to Congress, which at the time was controversial for heated political rhetoric. How the ball has moved in that time. But I first met Lindsey Graham.
And his son is likely to be the next governor. Alan Wilson won the GOP primary. So it's the potential rise of the Wilson dynasty.
Be something to watch there. I mean, we were talking before we came on the air. I first met Senator Graham in 2016 when he was endorsing Jeb Bush for president and fighting very strongly against a candidate he didn't believe in, and that was Donald Trump. I pulled some quotes from him this morning in that era saying that Trump was reckless and he says things that don't make sense. Can you talk a little bit about Graham's political evolution and his evolving friendship with President Trump? Trump was quoted as saying he's one of his best friends. How did we get there?
It's been up and down, their relationship. Certainly Graham early on, I remember being at a big gala dinner in Washington where it was on C-SPAN where he made fun of President Trump. Then he became a backer. And then after the January 6th riots, he was very critical, even saying he's done with the president. I'm very upset with the way that was handled. This was the January 6th riot protesting Biden's victory that resulted in the beating up of cops. And then Graham went back into the fold. I think Graham always wanted to be in the mix, wanted to be influential, and he felt, it was his duty, especially given the views he had on Israel, strong supporter of Israel, Iran, and the rest of the foreign policy portfolio, to be influential and be close to the president. So I think, and he continued to push that even until his last dying breaths here, pushing this Russia sanctions bill that had been stalled for years, but saying that it was going to move forward on Friday to sort of try to force Vladimir Putin to make a peace in Ukraine.
Erik, last question here. Christina asking about that friendship, the evolution of that friendship. He was also a very useful person for President Trump to have in the U.S. Senate. He chaired the Judiciary Committee for many years and really worked quite ardently to enact what President Trump wanted to see. A lot more judges confirmed by that committee. Talk a bit about that, if you would, just the way that he executed the policy vision of this president.
Oh, I know. I think, he was chairman during the Brett Kavanaugh hearings, very much defending Kavanaugh, came under attacks for his behavior as a teenager, and that really set him up to be an ally again of President Trump. So I think he's always, he's a traditional conservative in many, many ways, having fought for the tax cuts, even though he once was a deficit hawk and these tax cuts cost $4 trillion, he quickly got behind them and made them them happen, by adjusting the way that they were accounted for. So, he was obviously someone who always fought to be at the center of everything. And I would say someone who actually believed in the free media. He was someone who talked to reporters who believed, that we're not the enemies of the people. And I did appreciate that.